What's up, beautiful people? Listen, Darima, welcome to the channel. Today we're gonna be checking this video and it's titled Diddy's new accuser made to sleep with Kim Porter. Plus accuser clowns Diddy's manhood. Okay. This is interesting. I'm excited to check this one out to hear what they've got to say, as a new lawsuit have been filed against Diddy, and I think this is the 6th and the 7th lawsuit. So this is going to be the 7th lawsuit filed against Diddy because 2 other ladies have come forward. So yeah, I'm excited to check this one out to hear what they've got to say. Let's check it out.
Now, I'm not one to gossip, but I will bring you the tea. Welcome to Chronicles Speaks.
Okay, we start now.
Please, I don't have any time for any gossip now. Eh? Yes. Look at you.
You don't have to say it. I already know what you are thinking. And yes, Diddy has been hit with yet
another one.
Diddy has made yet another white woman cry. And what we discovered from the last lawsuit involving Diddy and a white woman, that they will hold on to evidence for decades and use it when it's the most necessary. And this case is no different. This case involves April Lampros, and she met Diddy 30 years ago. And since then, she's kept the cards that were attached to flowers, invitations, pictures, telephone numbers to the studio, even invites to Kim Porter's birthday party. And that's so ironic because when you hear about the things that Diddy allegedly made this woman do with Kim, it will sicken you. This lawsuit is wild, and the attorney representing her is no other than attorney Tyrone Blackburn. We've known him to handle several lawsuits regarding Diddy. The most notable one is the one involving Rodney Little Rod Jones. Besides Cassie's lawsuit, this lawsuit was the one that really got the ball going and got people looking at Diddy entirely different. Tyrone seems to be on Diddy's neck, and because of it, we are finding out a lot about Diddy's past. We are going to break down all of the Diddy drama and so much more, but before we do, please be sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss out on any news regarding this story and so much more. Now let's get back into
all
it.
of these big dick deviants is all catching hell in 2024. It's up for all of them. It don't matter if you Diddy or whoever you is. All lies will be exposed. That's all.
Cat Williams predicted it earlier this year, and I'll be damned if we aren't all watching it live and living color, everything coming to pass. Diddy officially has more lawsuits than he does kids. There are now 7 lawsuits filed against Diddy in the past 6 months. Diddy's karma is now coming to him like a raging bull, and with all of the money and all of the connects in the world, it doesn't seem like anything can stop it.
I'm a savage. Whatever I want, I'm going to get. Whatever I want, I have to get.
We spoke about a lawsuit yesterday with model Crystal McKinney, and less than 24 hours after that lawsuit was filed, April Lampros filed hers. And I told you before that these lawsuits are being filed under the Gender Motivated Violence Protection Law in New York, and even if the statute of limitations has already expired, they are giving these victims a 2-year look-back window from March 1st, 2023 through March 1st, 2025 to file a civil lawsuit against the abuser and request relief such as pain and suffering, lost wages, attorney fees, punitive damages, and so forth. So without further ado, somebody cue up my theme music so we can get into these court docs. Inspector Chronicles. Upon information and belief, Miss Lampros met Mr. Combs in early 1994 after the birth of his first son, Justin Dior Combs. At the time, Miss Lampros was a college student at the Fashion Institute of Technology, studying fashion design and marketing. To impress her, Mr. Combs would often invite her to Bad Boy recording studios in New York City. When she met Mr. Combs, Miss Lampros shared with him her dreams of working in the fashion industry, and Mr. Combs promised to mentor her and help her by introducing her to music and fashion industry executives, as well as assisting her with finding work. Mr. Combs love bombed her. He showered her with gifts and flowers, as evidenced by one of the cards that accompanied the flowers that Mr. Combs sent Miss Lampros for Valentine's Day in 1994. And the card says, "Happy Valentine's Day. Love, Puppy." Mr. Combs went so far as to invite Miss Lampros to his first Father's Day celebration. The invitation to that event is below, and the invitation is a picture of him and cute Justin, and it says this: "Dear friends, on June 19, 1994, Bad Boy Entertainment would like for you to come and join us in celebrating the original Bad Boy's first Father's Day celebration. For this occasion, there is a dress code. No jeans or sneakers will be permitted. This spectacular event will be held at the Capitol. This event will begin promptly at 10 o'clock p.m. and will go on until. Please come early to avoid any inconvenience. For further information, you can contact the offices of Bad Boy. Remember, the dress code will be strictly enforced, so dress your best. Thanks for your support, Bad Boy Entertainment." Now, a month after the Father's Day event, Mr. Combs invited Miss Lampros to an exclusive Bad Boy party with performances by Usher, Craig Mack, and the Notorious B.I.G. And the invitation says, "Life is not a game. Only the fittest and most aggressive will survive. Sleeping is forbidden. A second cannot be wasted. Once seconds are lost, you lose, and losing is for losers. Puff Daddy." The next part says Bad Boy Entertainment is about to set it off. The date is July 19, 1994. This is held at the Capitol as well. Doors open at 9 p.m. Dress, it's all good. Super DJ Puff Daddy on the ones and the twos. Midnight performances by Bad Boy Entertainment's own Craig Mack, the Notorious B.I.G., and special guest appearance by Usher Raymond, who is with LaFace Records. Upon information and belief, what Mr. Combs displayed as kind gestures quickly manifested into an aggressive, coercive, and abusive relationship based on sex. These acts were not isolated to the state of New York, as Mr. Combs would fly Miss Lampros to Atlanta to see him, where they would spend time together. Miss Lampros would often fly to Miami to see Mr. Combs at his home. Upon information and belief, throughout the years with Mr. Combs, there were 4 terrifying sexual encounters Miss Lampros endured. According to Miss Lampros, Mr. Combs had a terrible temper and often threatened to harm her if she failed to do what he said, if he witnessed her talking to other men, or if she failed to take his phone calls. According to Ms. Lampros, she was also not allowed to talk about her relationship with Mr. Combs to anyone because he did not want anyone to know he was seeing her because she is a white woman. The first horrific sexual encounter occurred in 1995 when Ms. Lampros met up with Mr. Combs in south of Houston Street, which is also called Soho, at a bar. She was introduced to a woman whose name has been redacted, and the group lightly drank throughout the evening. At the time, Ms. Lampros was a college student and did not drink any alcohol. Due to Mr. Combs' delusional and violent outbursts, she succumbed to the pressure and reluctantly drank with Mr. Combs and the redacted named woman. As they drank, Ms. Lampros began to feel uneasy. At this point, she had only had a few sips of one drink. Ms. Lampros and the redacted named woman were guided to a vehicle.
Wow. The information is plenty. This is the 7th lawsuit against Diddy. And that's how they start. They start with career first, wanting to elevate their career and everything, and then somewhere down the road it becomes, or it turns out to be, something else. I've asked this question: are we ready for the details or for any information that is going to pop out in the next couple of months? I mean, this is plenty, and this is not even all of it. How many more are there that are also gonna come out or come forward to say it, both the ones that also this happened to, both dead and alive? How many are there? Well, let's find out. Let's go on.
And the redacted named woman were guided to a vehicle and left the bar with Mr. Combs. They arrived at the Millennium Hotel. While at the hotel, Ms. Lampros continued to feel uneasy. She recalls feeling like the walls were closing in on her. She was laid on the hotel bed where Mr. Combs forced himself on top of her. Mr. Combs began to kiss Ms. Lampros. As she turned her head, trying to avoid the interaction, he grabbed her face. Mr. Combs continued to kiss her forcibly. Ms. Lampros informed him that she wasn't feeling well at all, but but he ignored her words and continued to take off her clothing. Ms. Lampros tried to hold onto her clothing, but she felt weak and powerless in this situation. Ms. Lampros pleaded with Mr. Combs to stop, and he ignored her. Ms. Lampros could not process why this was occurring and felt a loss of control. Ms. Lampros was being awed by Mr. Combs, and she soon passed out. The next morning, Ms. Lampros was awoken by the sun peering through the drapes. She was nude, sore, and confused. Ms. Lampros quickly got out of bed, clothed herself, and left the hotel room as fast as she could. Months after this first R, Mr. Combs pursued Ms. Lampros. He sent her gifts, cards, and flowers, and used his access and power to music industry events to lure Ms. Lampros back to him. Ms. Lampros was a hopeful yet naive college student and took Mr. Combs at his word and believed that the first R was a possible mulligan and decided to give him a second chance. At the time, Ms. Lampros was a college student in her late teens and early 20s. Her decision to return to Mr. Combs after being R'd is indicative of many assault survivors who return to their abusers. Ms. Lampros agreed to meet Mr. Combs to discuss the business opportunities he promised, as he knew her passion was to pursue a career in fashion and music. They met up and talked near his Manhattan apartment, which was somewhere near 30th Street at the time. Ms. Lampros was under the impression that what had occurred months prior between them would not happen again. She was holding on to Mr. Combs' promises of access to his industry to pursue her passion. Mr. Combs was respectful, regained her trust, and used their common interactions with Arista, which is a parent company of Bad Boy Records, and Ms. Lampros was an intern at Arista Records. Things seemed to be normal between the two until the second incident of sexual assault. During a second incident of sexual assault, Mr. Combs and Ms. Lampros were in a parking garage near his Manhattan apartment. She believes it was somewhere near 30th Street. They were headed to dinner and Mr. Combs was slightly inebriated. As they headed towards the parking garage, Mr. Combs grabbed Ms. Lampros by her waist and forced her down to her knees. He quickly unzipped his pants, exposing his erect Johnson. He then grabbed her hair, wrapping it around his fist. He then forced his erect Johnson into her mouth and demanded Ms. Lampros perform oral sex. As Ms. Lampros' eyes filled with tears, she could see the parking garage attendant witnessing this horrific assault. This had no impact on Mr. Combs. He was blinded by his lustful desire to pleasure himself at Ms. Lampros' expense. When Mr. Combs was done with her, he told her to get up. Ms. Lampros was in shock, morally depleted, embarrassed, and in physical agony because of Mr. Combs violently yanking her down to her knees and pulling her hair. Once again, Ms. Lampros made the decision to distance herself, and once again, Mr. Combs came back with gifts and empty promises. Ms. Lampros was not moved. She had enough and decided to focus on her studies and leave Mr. Combs for good. Unbeknownst to Ms. Lampros, Mr. Combs was not good at accepting rejection. He immediately switched his approach and became angry, threatening, and forceful. He developed this mobster persona, and Miss Lampros was in fear of him. Mr. Combs began calling Miss Lampros incessantly and would often call her just to say, if anyone is in your apartment, I will beat your ass in theirs. Miss Lampros' reasonable fear of Mr. Combs left her feeling stuck with him and with no way out. He knew where she lived and worked and had connections to ensure her compliance with his demands. She felt that if she disobeyed him, he would take away her dreams of pursuing a career in his world. Mr. Combs would also threaten to blacklist her in the industry if she tried to mess with him in any way. Ms. Lampros' dreams and everything she had been working hard for were in the palm of his hands.
Imagine.
One night in 1996, Mr. Combs ordered Ms. Lampros to his Manhattan apartment. Mr. Combs' residence was in the 30s and Park near the Midtown Tunnel. When Ms. Lampros arrived, Kim Porter and two other people were present. Mr. Combs introduced the women. They went to a nightclub. After the club closed, they returned to Mr. Combs' apartment and they began a night of drinking. A couple of hours into the evening, Mr. Combs forced Miss Porter and Miss Lampros to take ecstasy. Mr. Combs instructed the women to open their mouths. When they complied with his commands, Mr. Combs forced the pill into their throat to ensure the pills were swallowed. Mr. Combs' hands were so far down Miss Lampros' throat, she gagged. He even checked under their tongues. With the combination of alcohol and ecstasy, Miss Lampros recalled feeling lightheaded and lethargic. After being forced to take ecstasy, Mr. Combs then demanded Kim Porter to have sexual intercourse with Miss Lampros. Miss Lampros vocally opposed this idea, but Mr. Combs quickly reminded her that she had no control over the situation as he could make her lose her job. Miss Lampros knew she had to comply because she had witnessed what happens when someone defies Mr. Combs. She had also been threatened and victimized by Mr. Combs and did not want to cause a problem because she feared him. As Mr. Combs demanded Miss Porter and Miss Lampros to engage in sex, Mr. Combs sat close by, pleasured himself for some time before pushing Kim Porter off Miss Lampros and forcefully R-ing her. Miss Lampros felt numb at the moment and emotionally checked out. A few hours later, Miss Lampros recalls being woken.
Can you imagine? Why am I surprised? This is not even surprising at all because the details is horrific. Yo! And this is not even recent. This is past things that, of course, nobody gives a flying care about these details or this information because it's wholly weird. Wow. My question still remains, how many more are there? Or how many people has he done this to? The names. This gets all the more interesting. Let's go on.
Checked out. A few hours later, Miss Lampros recalls being woken up by Mr. Combs and told to leave the residence. She felt disgusted, ashamed, and embarrassed and couldn't believe what had happened. Shortly after this event, Miss Lampros slowly distanced herself from Mr. Combs. Even though she was reluctant to be with him, he used industry connections and invitations to exclusive events to keep her attached. Mr. Combs went so far as to invite her to Kim Porter's birthday celebration. And the invitation reads this: Sean Puppy Combs cordially invites you to attend a birthday celebration in honor of his girlfriend, Kim Porter. This is December 16th, 1997 at Cheetah in New York. This evening will feature a special performance by Chico DeBarge. This invitation in special formal attire will be required for admission. This invite admits only one. In or about 1998, Ms. Lampros found the courage to end her relationship with Mr. Combs. She had finally suffered enough. However, this ending was one-sided. Mr. Combs and Kim Porter weren't done with Ms. Lampros. Kim Porter was very resentful of Ms. Lampros after she was forced to engage in sex acts with Ms. Lampros. She dined at Ms. Lampros' place of employment, a bar named Silver, which was in Soho. According to Ms. Lampros, Ms. Porter was enraged when she saw her. According to Ms. Lampros, 2 days later, Ms. Porter called her employer and complained to the manager, alleging that Ms. Lampros attempted to poison her. She then stated that her boyfriend was Sean Combs and could have the business shut down if he did not immediately terminate Ms. Lampros. Later that evening, the manager told her he had to let her go because Mr. Combs called and demanded that he fire her. Ms. Lampros believes that Ms. Porter got Ms. Lampros fired in retaliation for what Mr. Combs made them do. According to Ms. Lampros, her boss was afraid of Mr. Combs and his contacts and told her that he had to do it or Mr. Combs could risk getting his business closed. Ms. Lampros called Mr. Combs and he showed no remorse that she was out of a job. In fact, he laughed about it. At the time she ended their relationship, Ms. Lampros recalls Mr. Combs' Johnson being adolescently in both length and width. She recalls him being circumcised and remembers a tattoo on his chest.
Oh. Why would she say that?
While in a relationship with Mr. Combs, Ms. Lampros was a student at FIT. She had a passion for fashion, and Mr. Combs knew this. Mr. Combs promised Ms. Lampros several working opportunities in the fashion and music industry, and the two often discussed his plans to launch his own clothing brand. Within months of Ms. Lampros ending their relationship, Mr. Combs launched Sean John. According to Ms. Lampros, she saw Mr. Combs at an event at Rockefeller Center in or about the end of 2000 towards the beginning of 2001. At the time, Ms. Lampros said Mr. Combs may have been filming a season of Making the Band. According to Ms. Lampros, when Mr. Combs saw her, he approached Ms. Lampros and asked the camera crew to turn off the cameras to not film their interactions. According to Ms. Lampros, Mr. Combs asked her how she was, expressed to her that he missed her, and asked if she would leave the event at Rockefeller Center with him. Ms. Lampros rejected Mr. Combs and left. According to Ms. Lampros, later that evening, he kept calling her and asking if she would come to his apartment on Park Avenue, but she said no. He even offered to send his driver to pick her up. Finally, he offered to come with his driver to pick her up. According to Ms. Lampros, Mr. Combs does not like the word no. He called a few more times, so she stopped answering the phone. According to Ms. Lampros, a few days later, he called again, begging to see her. Reluctantly and regrettably, she allowed him to come over to her apartment located at 477 Central Park West to hear what he had to say. Ms. Lampros figured it was during the day and doubted that he would try to harm her. According to Ms. Lampros, when she opened the door, his security was sitting on the stairwell. Knowing that security was there made Ms. Lampros feel a little better about letting him in. They sat on her couch and began talking. According to Ms. Lampros, Mr. Combs began apologizing for his past behaviors. He started telling her that he was a changed man. He then showered her with compliments, telling her how good she looked and kept reminiscing about their prior sex life. He then began dropping hints about them having sex. Ms. Lampros rejected his advances. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Mr. Combs violently grabbed her and forced himself onto her. He began kissing her and touching her against her will. At that point, Ms. Lampros fought him off. After she quickly realized it was a big mistake to have allowed him to visit her, she told him to leave as she felt that he just wanted to use her for sex and hadn't changed at all. Even more disgusting was the fact that Ms. Lampros knew that Mr. Combs was involved in a very public relationship with Jennifer Lopez. According to several media reports from that time, Mr. Combs ended his relationship with Jennifer Lopez due to infidelity in February of 2001. This was around the same time that Mr. Combs sexually assaulted Ms. Lampros. Luckily for Ms. Lampros, the couch was right near the door of the apartment, so it was easy for her to reach for the door and open it and demand for him to leave. She ensured that his security could hear her telling him to exit. She was afraid that Mr. Combs would have AR'd her, as he does not take no for an answer and had a history of violently.
Like I said, the story plenty, and it's the fact that lots of people would blame her for continuously letting him and allowing him do all of this. And this is what happens with many people returning to their abuser and all of that, because they always want to give them the chance, but the truth is, this type of people don't repent. It's just a continuous cycle. So imagine, wow, things they happen, sha. But let's go on.
To reach for the door and open it and demand for him to leave. She ensured that his security could hear her telling him to exit. She was afraid that Mr. Combs would have AR'd her, as he does not take no for an answer and had a history of violently handling her and forcing her to perform oral on him. Ms. Lampros is in possession of several of Mr. Combs' phone numbers throughout the years. According to Ms. Lampros, in or about 2023, Ms. Lampros was at a function and a gentleman whose name has been redacted informed the man Ms. Lampros was dating that he should reconsider dating her because he personally saw a video of her and Sean Combs having sex. According to Ms. Lampros, the gentleman whose name has been redacted shared that he saw the tape during the summer of 1997. According to Ms. Lampros, she was told that Mr. Combs apparently recorded them having sex without her knowledge and showed it to multiple people. Ms. Lampros is suing Diddy for battery, assault and sexual assault, negligent infliction of emotional distress, and violation of the Victims of Gender-Motivated Violence Protection Law in NYC. Her prayer for relief is for a money judgment representing compensatory damages, including consequential damages, lost wages, earnings, and all other sums of money, together with interest on these amounts according to proof, for a money judgment for mental pain and anguish and severe emotional distress according to proof, for punitive and exemplary damages according to proof, for attorney fees and costs, for prejudgment and post-judgment interest, and such other and further relief as the court may deem just and proper. According to these lawsuits, it seems like Diddy goes and finds women that have a certain need for him. He promises you a music career. He promises you a modeling career. He promises you a fashion career. And he dangles these carrots of these promises in front of you to get you to do what he wants you to do And if you don't do it, he tells you he's going to take it away from you. Diddy has gone all of these years being this power-stricken individual, and it seems like no one has ever called him out on his SHIT until now. We have two new players here, and in the court system, we all know white women tears hit a little different than us black women. Granted, this is still a civil case. I'm not sure what they're going to try to pick him up on criminally, but I am pretty sure that the feds found a lot in that home. If Diddy is recording all of his sexual escapades with different people, these people are not willfully having sex with him, I don't know what they can get him on. All I know is that as soon as white women came into play, Diddy was playing with a different deck of cards, and I don't know if he has the right hand. What I need to do is hear from you. What do you think about everything I just read to you about this new lawsuit? Do you think any of this will stick? Do you think he'll ever be criminally charged for anything? Leave a comment and you know how we do. We'll talk about it down below. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
You see this? It is not even surprising that this happens or he would do this, because I mean, going through the details of the lawsuit and others that are filed, you will know that this is a common behavior. And for people who keep saying it was his darkest moment, okay, this one too, is this his darkest moment? Because it seems like this is an act that has been going on, and he looks for the type of women that are most vulnerable, just like what was said here. Exactly. It looks at them, okay, you will be needing something from him, especially with your career and stuff. So this is a time, perfect time to use it against you, promising them career, good career and all of that. Wow, this is the 7th lawsuit against him. Voila, plenty. The story itself is plenty, but let's see how this goes. Let me know what you think about this. There are so many information, so many details shared here that I don't want to get into, regardless of how people would feel. Lots of people will be like, well, she saw this coming and all of that. Well, people should also remember that some people they always some people return to their abuser until they just couldn't no more, and sometimes not everybody find the courage or have the courage to leave their abuser or leave an abusive relationship whatsoever. But let me know what you think about this. I'm sure tons of people have interesting things to share. I really love your honest contribution. You can share the useful information you think might be really helpful. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe and all of that stuff. And until next time, see you in the next video.